Guru Nation, we have a very special episode today. The CRA Academy instructor, Tiffany Bennett, is on. It's so rare. This is like a rare sighting. But the CRA Academy students that have been in the class, alumni, no lie, Tiffany, today another student messaged me on LinkedIn from a previous class. I'm on my second roll. I didn't even read the whole thing yet because we've been busy here at the clinic. But like
Mm-hmm.
it was good stuff because there was like purple heart emojis in it and stuff. So like it was
Mm-hmm.
good. Like another job probably.
Yeah.
And it's one of our alumni. So I'm gonna, as soon as we
Okay.
finish with this, I'm going back in there to reply to her because she wrote a long thing.
Oh, okay.
But we're
Good.
getting results, and our alumni, they'll recognize you. They
Yeah.
recognize the voice. Uh, they all like rave reviews about Tiffany. So whatever you're doing, keep it up. We're lucky to have you as our instructor, and you've been the only, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
the only since our inception business
Yep.
partner slash co-founder slash instructor, like the only. There's been a few times where you like called in sick,
Mm-hmm.
Beyonce concerts, maybe
Beyonce
talk a
concerts.
little bit
Yeah.
about that. And we have like
Mm-hmm.
internship coaches, and in the past we've had like scenario coaches, but
Mm-hmm.
like the core instructor has always been you since day one,
Yes.
which is 2016. It's incredible.
I know. It's been a long time. I keep thinking, I'm like, wow, we're really just still just chipping away at it and helping a lot of people get into the industry. And
And you've already
I think
moved three times, three cities, three different cities. Where are you now?
Los Angeles, Las Vegas, and now I'm in Atlanta, Georgia.
And Atlanta is where like that's our hotspot for students too.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I don't know
So
why, but that's our hotspot for students.
is it? Okay.
Atlanta and Houston and Dallas are like our hotspots for students.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of research. I mean, there's research everywhere, but I think the biggest places are what the Bay Area, San Diego, Houston. I know there's a lot of studies in Florida, there's a lot of studies here
Mhm.
in Georgia.
Mhm.
But I think those are probably like the biggest places where, sites are. So that's good. I'm not, complaining, but I think what also I think because of the level of detail that I like get into is what makes it more like easier to understand. Because I think we put a lot of examples in the content and make it make sense, like literally make it make sense. So it's kind of, hard because this clinical research is a hidden industry. So I kind of see us as like giving a peek inside with,
Yeah.
real life examples and real like scenarios and real situations and breaking that down to where you can't help but understand, how it all
Yeah.
works.
And the more you do it, it's life changing. Like we have, I'm not
Mhm.
gonna put her on the spot, but one of our coordinators here,
Mhm.
this is like they get in and then they realize, hey, this is something I can do like for my career.
Mhm.
It's not just a job.
Mhm.
We have another coordinator, same thing. It's his second day, and he's already like reconsidering what he's going to do with his career because he got
Mhm.
exposed now to research. And the fact that you and I, me through the videos, you through the classes, are able to expose people to this industry
Mhm.
is kind of cool, especially when you look at all of our alumni and you see like the places that they've been able to go. Like I'll send you
Mhm.
privately, I'll send you the message this one student sent me afterwards. You probably remember her.
Okay. Yeah, I don't get I mean they have my email, but yeah, they definitely know you more. I mean, they know me through the course,
That's
but
because you're hiding. Like you're just for the students, you're not for the public, not for public consumption, just for the students. Why
for
have you been
consumption.
you've that's been kind of your thing, like your MO is like you're not flashy, you stay under the radar.
I'm shy,
I see.
but not when it comes to clinical research. I
And not when
know,
it comes to the class either.
yeah, not when it comes to the class. Exactly. I don't know. I don't know. It's just not really, you know me, I've tried. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
answer that question, but
Well, we appreciate you doing the pod, and we might go live before the year's over to
yeah.
get people excited about the January class. It's going to start the week of January 7th. So if you're watching
Hmm.
this right now. If it's a little bit past January 7th, there's a chance you can still get in. We only allow 15 students total every quarter, just so we can
Yep.
do that one-on-one with Tiffany and in the internship afterwards too.
Mhm.
And Tiffany's been a CRA for those. I have interviewed her before, so I'll have a link to that interview under this video, so you can go check it out and watch like her career story. We're not going to get into that too much, but she has
Mhm.
been a CRA. She has been like just about everything in this space.
Mhm.
Site sponsor, CRO, vendor
Except for
level,
this, except for the PI.
except for PI. So the topic of this one is CRA rookie mistakes, like most common CRA
Yeah.
rookie mistakes. And being that you are a CRA,
Mhm.
right? And you've been a CRA rookie once.
Mhm.
Maybe we can just highlight some of these
Yeah,
areas
sure.
of focus.
So the first thing I feel like people are, and we talk about this in the course, but we talk about like all the different things you will have to do as a CRA. And one of those things, or a lot of those things, are being aware of and knowing how to manage your time management. Um, because there's so many things that you have to do. You have to be organized, you have to be detailed. We have timelines we have to adhere to. We have to, book our travel to the sites. We have to write our reports. We have to schedule the visits. We only have so much time on site. I mean, there are times where, high enrolling sites where you can, be there for longer than one day to monitor. And a regular monitoring day is 8 hours. But there are also times where you need to not outsource, but you need to ask for help as far as a co-monitor so you can get through the workload. Because if you try to manage a high enrolling site by yourself, that's going to be an issue. And when things aren't source data verified in timely manner, then that's going to look bad on you. So I think also just like communicating that you need assistance with that, and also making sure that, because that goes into time management, right? um Not having those case report forms SDV'd, and you got sites that have patients coming in different visits, and when there's patient visits, that means that there's data to monitor. And so when leaving the site, you want to make sure obviously schedule your next visit, but also make sure that that once you're done with that visit, you have a report, a draft that you have to get in. That's going to take, I think the industry standard is still 5 days for a draft, 10 days for finalization. And then you on to your next visit. And it's like, when are you going to write this report? When are you going to write your confirmation letters? When are you going to write your follow-up letters? You may have to do that on the road. So I think that's one of the biggest things that will kind of slap people in the face that they don't
Is time
expect
management.
is time management.
And one of our internship coaches, Ashley Margot, who's actually
Mm-hmm.
she's not a CRA right now. She's at the sponsor level. Like she started out as a remote CRA, but now she's
Mm-hmm.
sponsor level, like project manager or something. She teaches
Mm.
for the interns like an entire course on time management, like down to
Mm.
organize your inbox.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she gets very granular with it. So it
Mm-hmm.
is something that we touch on a lot. I know Tiffany does it during the course, but then even
Mm-hmm.
after the course, we have multiple touch points where we will have this topic of time management come up, because it's probably the one, like the main one that gets most people.
Yeah, because it's don't get me wrong, it's a oh kind it can be a fun job, but everything has a timeline or a milestone. Even sponsors, they have their timelines and milestones, and to do what PSVs, even protocol development, doing all the PSVs. So CRAs, that's where we most times or sometimes start, depending on what the sponsor or CRO is requesting as far as the allocations. But even they have a time frame into which they want these visits to be done: PSVs, SIVs, IMVs. So everything, it is a project, and those projects have milestones and deadlines. So,
Mhm.
it trickles down to your role as a CRA. So that's really important.
Time management. I'm so glad you brought that up. And by the way,
Mm-hmm.
guys, these are not scripted or planned interviews. I had no idea
Yeah.
what Tiffany was gonna say, but I agree. And if I don't agree, we'll argue it a little. But
Yeah.
all right, what's next on the list of like rookie mistakes for series?
I think so. Time management is one. Two is understanding your protocol and being able to effectively identify when a subject does not qualify for a study.
Ah,
Include,
especially that last part.
yeah, inclusion exclusion criteria because there's things
Hearing
that
that? My coordinator's here listening. You gotta listen to what CRAs are looking for.
yeah.
Why say it again for the people in the back, literally.
Say it louder for the people in the back. Um, just knowing when a subject does not qualify for a study and being able to identify, I mean, being knowledgeable of the inclusion exclusion criteria and thoroughly like going through that medical history and finding those things where it, people, the site could have missed, and identifying, when subjects are not eligible for the study because that's a safety issue, right? The inclusion
On the
exclusion
board,
criteria
we have a
is
good CRA that caught one on our board. You guys can't see it, probably good for you
mm-hmm,
guys that you can't, but it's on there because
mm-hmm,
we had a good CRA come in. Hey,
mm-hmm,
we all missed it at the site. You know,
mm,
we all missed
mm.
it.
Mm-hmm. It
Easy.
happens.
It
It
happens.
happens.
It happened, but imagine if that CRA didn't catch it though,
Right. Right. And
right?
and so that's a really big deal. And a way to be on top of that is to, thoroughly know your protocol and give yourself enough time to do that. Now, when it comes to you being allocated to a study, sponsors have quick timelines, but still you're the one that has to go in there and, present on the protocol. You need to know what you're talking about and you need to do whatever it is you need to do to make sure that you know that protocol thoroughly. And that's, prior to the IMVs. So yeah, the PSVs, which is where the physicians get selected for studies,
Mm.
and you may do a little protocol presentation, and that's typically where it starts, but maybe not in depth. But it also depends on the sponsor. And then you have your SIVs where you're really going to get into the nitty gritty of the details of the protocol. And then you have your interim monitoring visits where you actually implement what you know about the protocol and identifying patients that actually qualify and don't qualify. And so I
Mhm.
think that's important. Sometimes it could be a little bit intimidating, but you can't just rely on the site at all times to do that. And
And
that's
because
your job as a CRA. I like to look at it like CRAs are like the police, and police patrol the streets. So we're patrolling the charts until you have the feds that come in and do the raid. And that's like the FDA when they come and do an audit, which is what you don't want. You don't want any findings in the audits.
we want to stay
You're
away.
putting her on the spot.
You can't see her face. I promise her.
That's true.
You can't see
I
her.
just feel how she's feeling. I'm like, if that were me, I was like,
You see her
ah.
presence there, but she's not.
Yeah.
See her.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, this is spot on. I'm actually glad
hmm
we're doing this because it's not only a podcast for Guru Nation, but it's like a one-on-one for my CRC because I
Yeah.
literally have this conversation with them a lot.
hmm
Who do you think? Because here's the thing, what you said is really important. The
hmm
CRA is like the last line of defense between the site and the FDA, really. Like
Yeah.
if you take away that layer, it's just the
hmm
site doing what they think is right,
hmm
and then they're busy. And here's
hmm
the thing, like a CRC, let's just ask them right now. How many studies are you managing right now? Four. That's not common
Yeah.
for a CRA. CRA usually one or two at the most, right?
No, I think, well, it depends on how your level of
Like
how
your
many
your
years you've been
entry, like
monitoring.
your
Oh,
beginning.
that's right. Beginning, yes, it's going to be about one or two.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because this is a beginning CRC and they're doing
Yeah.
four. Like when they're
Yeah.
advanced, they could do like eight.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
point is CRCs do more studies than CRAs.
hmm
They're
hmm
juggling more.
hmm
You want the CRCs to know the protocol as well as the CRA, but in
hmm
reality, they don't. In reality, the entire industry is depending on the CRAs to be the experts of these protocols. That's just
Right.
It's not what it's supposed to be. It's not how it's designed.
Mhm, mhm.
It's just
Yeah,
how it is.
yeah, exactly, and that's why, it's I mean, with and that's why I kind of brought up time management first because all studies have their same core responsibilities and you have to manage your time and you must know your protocol inside and out because that's the blueprint. It's the blueprint for everyone, but you're right, the monitor is that last checkpoint before there's some type of audit, whether it be a sponsor audit. Well, that's kind of depends, but especially the FDA, because FDA audits don't happen at every single site for every single study, but they happen often enough to where, you have to keep that in mind because that's the last place where you want findings to occur.
It could also be a sponsor audit.
Yeah.
Most of these CRAs are employed by CROs, and to them,
Mhm.
a bad sponsor audit is just as bad as a bad FDA audit to them because
Mhm. Mhm.
that sponsor might say, "We're not using this CRO again. Look what kind of
Mhm.
CRAs they're hiring. Like we're not using them again."
Exactly. Exactly.
And those are
So,
much more common sponsor audits
oh
than
yeah, the FDA audits. Yeah.
we
Yeah.
got to put a little fear into people. Okay, I agree with those two.
Auditing happens. Auditing happens.
Auditing happens, guys.
There's even IRB audits.
We've had IRB audit before.
Okay.
Not at Yuma Clinical Trials, but at my other site, yeah. I mean,
Mhm.
especially when you have the same deviations over and over.
Mhm. Mhm.
I had to report 4 consenting deviations in a row, and then they came to audit us. The IRB scheduled
Mm.
the audit, and we ended up doing well, but we had like
Just
overworked.
triggered them.
Yep, the same. And
Mm.
I heard recently that the IRB, and this must be new, the IRB can forward deviations to the FDA now too. Scare
That
people
must be,
more, but they can do that now.
yeah, that must be, I haven't really heard that, but I believe it because that's what they do. They're the third party that's between the site and the sponsor. And I mean, why would they keep the info if they have concerns?
They have
And
to,
it's
yeah, and it's not just for fraud, like fraud concerns,
mhm,
or like legitimate, like
patient safety.
safety. Like I know a site that
Mhm.
had dosing errors on a study I'm doing,
Mm.
and the site reported like 4 dosing errors.
Oh
And
yeah,
the
that'll do it.
IRB hit the forward button to the FDA,
Mm.
and then they got audited.
Wow, by the FDA?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh wow.
yeah.
Yeah, so I'm sure those are like some new things that are coming about, and it's all about, patient safety. Like, that's the number one thing for everyone, really,
Mhm.
is patient safety. But I'm glad you brought up ICS because that was my next thing I was going to
Okay,
bring up.
number 3, you guys taking notes out. I know coordinator over here is taking notes right here too. I see her actually like writing
Oh,
furiously.
yeah, that's good. That's good. So when it comes to the ICF, it's like that's the most important thing. I mean, beside the basics about it being IRB approved, which you would know because it's going to be in the portal that CRAs have access to, the sites have access to. We're always going to know, or we should know, the latest IRB approved informed consent once we get on site and we're monitoring. I almost asked you a pop quiz question like you were my student. I
I'm
do that in the
down. Bring
class.
them on. Keep me current.
I'm like, when do we review? What visits do we review the informed consent? Is it the closeout visit? Is it IMVs, SIVs?
Every
Exam?
visit.
Every visit. Yeah. So in the beginning, it's like you have, let's say, for example, we're in the middle of our interim monitoring visits, and we've been to a site a couple times. I use this in the class. We've been to the site a couple times, and we have 3 subjects that are already on the study, and then we have subjects 4 and 5 that have just been screened and they just enrolled into the study. Well, those first 3 subjects are going to be set aside for a second because we have to review the informed consent for those next for subjects 4 and 5 to make
Mhm.
sure that the consenting process was done properly.
Right.
So it's more than just a form, right? So you have the IRB who approves the informed consent. You have, the IRB approval stamp. You have to make sure the PI information is on there. a 24-hour number, but those are all the things the IRB has to do. Page numbers, make sure all the pages of the informed consent is there. You don't necessarily have to review the content. You just need to know, because it's already IRB approved. It's not really your job, but you need to know that the site is using the latest IRB approved form, and also know when they need to use a legally authorized representative. And
Yeah.
the difference also between like an informed consent, let's say, for example, you're doing a pediatric study. I believe it's from the age of 7 up to 18 or 17 is when you would use an assent, ASSENT. Okay, so it's same rules apply, and usually the starting point is at 7 years old. So those types of things have to, you really have to be on top of, and then also knowing when subjects need to be reconsented, which is maintaining, is further extending their consent with the new updated information if there's a new informed consent that comes out. So I
Right.
think that that's like one of the things that people don't realize. Just like there's protocol amendments, there are changes to the informed consent too sometimes, depending on what they change in the protocol.
Yeah. So
So
anytime a protocol amendment usually triggers the ICF amendment,
yeah.
which usually means everyone that's active in the study, right? Gracia's
Hmm.
writing notes. I see her writing notes.
That's good. That's
Anytime a
good.
new ICF, any existing patient needs to re-sign it. So she knows, of course she knows.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's been taught by us. But
Right.
you're right. And CRAs ignore this because back to your example of those three that you already reviewed the consent and then two new
Hmm.
ones come in. But
Hmm.
let's say there was also an amendment. Then you should
Hmm.
review all five at that
Oh
visit.
yeah.
You can.
All five, exactly, at their next visit. So if there's a visit that's skipped, that's going to be a problem, because that's when you were supposed to reconsent them. So
Right.
CRAs have to
A visit
identify
that's
those.
you gotta reconsent them at every visit when there's a new ICF.
Yeah.
Good thing, no, she'll never forget this stuff now. It's kind of awesome. I kind of like having coordinator here while I'm doing it.
So you can, yeah, it helps go when you go back and forth.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I think those are like some of the biggest things that I think rookie CRAs, um those common mistakes, just because you're inexperienced. And I think that's another reason why people love our course so much, is because they get the information that they couldn't consider, because they don't have that, because they don't you know have that experience. So we try to, as much as possible, give you as much of a heads up as possible, and kind of prepare you for every situation that may happen, especially in the
Constantly improving,
scenarios.
constantly
Hmm.
improving it. Even in our
Hmm.
internship, like right now, we're in between studies for our CRO, so we're still
Hmm.
monitoring the older cancer study that we have, the breast cancer study, but it's still
Hmm.
a real study that students are monitoring.
Hmm.
To switch pretty soon to a newer study to update the internship. But we're also
Mm.
considering things like updating our eSource to Creo. Creo is like
Mhm.
our sponsors of this podcast, and they've already said that
Mhm.
they're gonna be willing to work with us. Viva Site Vault. So we're looking for ways to stay
Mm.
current by incorporating some of these things into our academy. And that's things that we can talk internally about, but I'm excited
Yeah.
about as well.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, a lot of there's informed consents, the consent.
So,
Did you
yep.
say that just now? Maybe you
No,
did.
but that's part of
Oh,
it. E-consent.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Mhm.
Creo does that too.
Mhm. Mhm. Um so yeah, all of those things I think are really important. Um yeah, what was it? Time management,
Time
uh
management,
patient safety, inclusion exclusion criteria,
and
and
ICFs.
ICFs.
What about regulatory? Like, where do the rookies drop the ball on regulatory?
Um, well, I think, you know, regulatory is tough. It can be tough. And the reason why is because these regulatory binders are huge.
Mhm.
There's a lot of tabs. You need to be familiar with, your protocols to make sure that the latest IRB approved protocol is in there. You need to be one area is the delegation of authority log. and
Yes.
making sure that everyone is GCP trained and making sure that everyone is trained on the protocol, period. Because where do we do our initial training? At the site initiation visit, right? But then it's up to the site or sometimes the sponsor, depends on, the situation, where if there's new people coming onto the site, who's going to do that protocol training, and has that person been added to the delegation of authority log? So that's going to require you to look at the dates, look at the signatures, look at the training, and compare those things, and making sure that the CVs, and if they have a license, that's on file, and making sure that everything is in place when it comes to that. So when you have sites that have high turnover, you have to keep an extra close eye on things like that. And also, there are other things in the regulatory binder like protocol signature pages, IB signature pages, financial disclosure forms, making sure financial disclosure forms are signed by all the investigators on the study that are listed on the 1572. Things like that. It can get a little fuzzy when it comes to like correspondence and like printing important emails, but hopefully those will be things that, you know, you're copied onto, since that's your site, especially when it comes to communications from like the medical monitor and making those types of decisions when it comes to determining, eligibility for a subject, for example,
Yeah.
um, and things like that. But yeah, the regulatory binder is a monster, and also you need to make sure that you're speaking with your internal team. So at the site level, we have the investigator site file, but at the sponsor level, it's the trial master file. And that's where some of the discrepancies, because there are some things that have to be on site just at the sponsor level or just at the site or both, and we go over that too pretty thoroughly in week 2 of our course. So,
Also, yeah, so this whole idea of regulatory maintenance and
mhm,
training, but there's also like following up on action items.
mhm.
You try not to go, what's the rule? Like more than 2 IMVs without an action item being resolved.
Oh, it depends on how tough your CRA is.
I mean, what's common?
Action, I mean, comment. It just depends on the action. It depends on the action item itself. Like if you have something that's expiring, like a medical license, you
Yeah.
can't wait for the next IMV sometimes.
Mhm.
And sponsors, whoever is over the regulatory, especially in house, will give you a heads up and give your site the heads up, or the CRA, depending on how the sponsor is set up to go and do that. But when it comes to action items, I mean, yeah, you don't want to go any more than 2 visits, but you really wanted to resolve those at your next interim monitoring visit, because that's going to be a part of your follow-up letter as well.
What about submitting a deviation, like to the IRB? How long do you typically let that go? Like one IMV,
I
two?
mean, one IMV, and especially if it involves patient safety, like that's
Yeah,
going to be an issue. You don't want to, and that's another thing. Maybe people don't realize this, but as a CRA, you are physically there on site on average every 4 weeks to 6 weeks. But that doesn't mean you're not in communication with your site when you're not there.
right.
So you can follow up on things, and ask for confirmation, and get whatever you need to make sure that those things, because that's part of what we're site managers when we're not on site, but we're still assigned to our sites, which makes us responsible for them. And so it wouldn't be a good thing to make things harder on yourself, waiting 4 weeks to 6 weeks for the next time for you to be there, when you can be proactive. And that's another thing I think CRAs have to be good at. It's being more proactive versus reactive in this research.
Proactive versus thank you. And maybe
Hmm.
that's segue to the last topic.
Hmm.
I'm gonna upload a video on this soon.
Hmm.
SDV versus SDR. So I
Hmm.
think the rookie mistake a lot of CRAs make that I've seen personally is they will only do SDV,
Hmm.
but not think about the consequences of what they're looking at.
Exactly. And that's why you have to implement Alcoa C or Alcoa C plus. They keep adding letters,
I
but
keep
it's
adding it.
basically it's basically attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, accurate. You want to go through those checkpoints and also make sure that if there is anything omitted, like protocol deviations, like if EKGs weren't done or a height wasn't done or something wasn't done and there's something blank, it should have some type of explanation for that. With the exception of, patients getting lab work done and they're still in the screening process and the results haven't come back yet. That's acceptable because there's nothing you can do.
Nothing you
But
can, yeah.
when it comes to source data review, it's super important to make sure that those fundamental things that are supposed to be there are actually there. And you get used to your sites. You get used to, what to expect from your sites, whether it is um, an experienced or inexperienced site. Like you'll know those types of things. And that's kind of, your job too as a CRA is to make sure your sites are aware of what needs to be done, especially when it comes to protocol.
Yeah, so maybe like not treating every site the same because not every site has the
It's the
same
same.
issues
It has
or
the
is
same
the same.
issues or the same experience. Yeah.
That's very good. Very good, Tiffany. Um, anything
Thanks.
else you want to add, or you want to just save some for the live stream?
Maybe save some for the live stream. I don't want to give it all out to right now. We might be here for
Another 3 hours.
exactly because this happened before.
Yeah,
Remember in the early days, I used to go on and on and on, and then I was
yeah.
like, I need to be considerate of people's time, so maybe I
Well,
should just
students love you.
cut
I
it.
cannot say that enough. Like it's Tiffany's amazing. If you were in one of her classes, drop a comment. Um, she's helped so many people get into the industry, and
Mhm.
I think our CRA Academy has been pretty successful
I think so
over the
too.
last 7 years now. It's like hard
Hmm.
to believe it's 7 years that we've been doing.
Hmm.
It's going on 8, so
Feels like yesterday.
it kind of still does. It's kind of weird because I know I haven't seen you in a while. Like we talk on text here,
Yeah.
but like to see you
Yeah.
on Zoom, I just feel
Hmm.
like it hasn't been that long.
Yeah, I know. I know. It's like old time, but there's like what old times?
Well, I'm gonna have the link to the interview with Tiffany regarding her entire career. Like we break it all down. That's like a
Hmm.
classic. You guys must watch it. So go
Hmm.
underneath. And then CRA Academy is now enrolling. So get in while you can,
Hmm.
right? TheCRAacademy.com. And Tiffany will meet you week 1, the week of January 7th. So that Saturday will be 6 days later. So
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
13th, I want to say.
Right.
Saturday.
Hmm.
All right. Anything else?
Right.
That's it. We'll wait for the live
No.
stream. We'll do more. Like we'll do like
Yeah.
be cool. We'll have like a Q&A session. It won't just be the CRC here, being put on the spot. It'll be Guru Nation asking questions.
Okay.
So that's awesome. Thank you so much, Tiffany. Everybody go watch the video.
Thank you.
Go to the CRAacademy.com. Bye-bye.